Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay. I am your host, financial planner, Canna Campbell, and as always, I'm here every Monday morning, 5 a.m., to help make sure that financial fire within you is ignited and burning strong and bright. I want to make sure that you always start the week off on an informed, empowered, and most importantly, educated note, because your financial goals and dreams are exciting and important. So I want to make sure that I'm helping set you up for success. Now, today's episode is the final episode from our ADHD mini-series. Now, whilst this is the last episode, I want to make it very clear that this space of ADHD and money will remain open. So if you want me to make future episodes around ADHD and money, budgeting, cash flow, investing, anything you like really, please feel free to reach out and request this. I think it's really important that as people become more and more aware of the various neurodivergent places and spaces that we are all operating in, the more information that we can put out there with ideas, inspiration, hacks, and strategies, we're able to really help support so many people. So please know that nothing is off the table around the topic of ADHD and money. I will continue on sharing this should you wish, but you need to let me know. Also, on that note, if you ever have any episode requests, don't hesitate to reach out. I love hearing your feedback and I love hearing your ideas for future episodes or things that you really want to learn about or hear more about. So hit me up at any time. Quick reminder to refer to my general advice warning and disclaimer, and of course my financial planning license details in all of my content. Everything is there for your educational purposes only, never product advice, investment advice, or personal strategic advice. All right, so today's episode, I'm going to be answering all of your questions that you sent through to me on Instagram. Now, before we begin though, there are a couple of additional things that I really wanted to share with you that I have found personally have really helped me manage my ADHD, particularly when I'm having a bad day. Now, with ADHD, I'm obviously speaking for myself because I'm not an expert, but I'm talking from my own personal experience. There are days where I am perfectly fine and I may not even need to take medication, but then there are days where I really struggle and things are falling apart and I feel like I am exploding inside. So I know I mentioned a couple of things in the first episode of my story, talking about my ADHD diagnosis, and I touched on things like minimalism. But here are a couple of additional things that I didn't mention that I think actually are incredibly helpful. So the first thing is using headphones. I really struggle with sounds around me, particularly when people are having conversations around me. Whilst I don't look like it's impacting me, inside my brain, it just triggers this wildly emotional reaction within me. So I find that putting headphones on with not necessarily anything playing, no sounds necessarily coming through the headphones, it really helps me calm down and my brain settles and I'm able then to go into a focus. It's almost like the headphones operate like a pod or a cone of silence over me. The other thing I find that also really helps is getting up early in the morning, 5 a.m. I wake up in the morning filled with motivation and inspiration. It is my favorite time of the day and it's really quite sacred. So for me, I really try and capitalize on that time and try and get a lot of work done before my crazy wild kids wake up. And it means that I actually have got something done and I can kind of fill myself up with some very much needed confidence and faith in myself. So if you do have ADHD and you're a morning person, capitalize on that. And if you are an evening person, capitalize on that. When everyone's gone to bed and sleep and the house is calm and quiet, use that time to your advantage to help magnify your superpower. The third thing that I wanted to share that I didn't remember to share in the first episode, and that is I do my list of things to do before I go to bed to help minimize my distractions, the temptations, or just the simple forgetfulness that quite often comes with ADHD, I write my list of things to do before I go to bed. And I have my list of things to do right by the bedside so that when I get up, I have some instructions to follow so that I can help create and start that momentum, which will help me get through my crazy, chaotic, and hectic day. The fourth thing that I do to help manage my ADHD is I actually look at my time. A lot of people with ADHD struggle with time management, and I think I mentioned that I will turn up 2.5 hours early or an hour late. It's something I really, really struggle with. So what I try and do is look at my list of things to do, and not only do I put it in order of priority, I'll also try and put a time on it. So I'll say, okay, 11 o'clock, do this task. 11:30, do that task. 12:45, do this task. Of course, I don't know exactly how long each task is going to take me, but by putting a clock or a time for each particular activity, it helps me remain focused and to a certain degree sometimes even gamifies my list of things to do and the importance of staying focused. All right, let's get started with answering your questions. Now, please know that as I go through these questions, none of them are in any particular order. And some of these questions actually were quite similar. And of course, before I begin, please remember that this is my own personal experience. Under no circumstances am I trying to be an expert in this field. I'm certainly not qualified, and I was only diagnosed a year ago, so I'm still finding my feet with this. So the first question I got was, how do you teach teenagers with ADHD and money, especially ones that struggle to focus? What is my advice for getting through school and life? So I would teach any child or teenager, whether they had ADHD or not, in the same way. I would break down the topic of financial literacy into teeny tiny conversations here and there and really focus on leading by example and communicating everything. We are going to really set ourselves up for failure and also make a bit of a rod for our own back and potentially trigger arguments with our children if we try and jam how to manage money and telling kids how to manage their pocket money. It's going to cause some friction. So go gentle and don't make it about teaching them. Make it about demonstrating them. Be the inspiration. Now, that definitely does not mean that you need to be fabulous with finance. Far from it. But just letting them know what you're doing or what you're trying to do is really powerful. And I don't think people will ever really underestimate this. Only yesterday I was standing in the supermarket at Coles and there was a woman in front of me with 3 children, and it looked like I think her sons were probably like early teenagers, and it was brilliant. She was standing there at the supermarket as she was scanning everything with them, making them watch the screen and explaining to them, look, we bought this one because see how the difference in cost per gram is. See how this is on special. See how this is adding up. It wasn't about, you need to learn how to do a budget. We can't spend more than this at the supermarket. She was very gently just peppering little bits of information and showing them the difference. And I watched these 2 boys and they were focused. They were listening. They were like, but she wasn't trying to aggressively jam it down the throat. And they just calmly sat there and they were watching. And they're like, yeah, okay. And I could see their brain ticking over and getting it. And she's like, and this is how much money we've saved. And she started to point to things at, the lollies around her at the checkout and demonstrate to them and say, look at this gum. You could buy that piece of gum. It costs this much. Or you could buy the gum in the bottle and it costs this much. This is much better value for money, isn't it? And they looked at it and they agreed with it. And so she was like, okay, well, do you want some gum here? Let's get it. So there was a little bit of a reward thrown in there, but not making it too obvious. And then that was the end of the conversation and off they went. I know with Rocco, it's something I've been very gently moving on with. And I think it's really important that you read children's signs. The moment they are looking at getting bored or distracted, that's time to just wrap it up and come back to it at another time. But with children or teenagers who have ADHD or not,
I think the best way to get kids on board with money and being empowered with their money and excited is to give them some goals, to show them what the potential is for themselves. Show them what they could potentially, create and buy. Even if it means like driving around a particular area that's maybe an affluent area, inspire them. Just like you would, take a child to watch a football game. That fills them with inspiration. Or you might take them to meet their favorite sports star or movie star, or letting them know that you can have a go at trying to create this for yourself. Allow that empowerment. Start planting those seeds. And obviously you have to use your intuition. Some things are going to be too much, but it has to be short and sharp. With Rocco, I used to let him sit on my lap and I would show him his share portfolio. I am 99.9% sure most of that information went in one ear and out the other. But every now and again, Rocco will say to me, "Can you show me my share portfolio?" He doesn't understand exactly what his share portfolio is. And by the way, for the record, this is not a massive share portfolio. Just every now and again, when I can afford to, I've bought him some shares. But the pieces of the puzzle are starting to slowly come together. And I am not rushing that. I'm just letting it organically happen. And every now and again, out of the blue, he'll ask me a question like, "How do I get money from this? Like, how does it work?" And I answer the question, give him a little bit of information, and I'll let him hold the space for it. And when he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, I just leave it. Another great idea for teenagers who obviously may need a little bit more maybe guidance is to give them goals. Say to them, "You know what? This is how much pocket money you get, or this is how much you earn from your weekend job working at McDonald's or in the cafe or whatever they may be doing," and say, "Why don't we look at some goals together?" And don't give them their goals. That is probably the worst thing you could possibly do. Give them ideas and show them that they don't have to pick one or the other. They could have a savings goal for something that's going to give them instant gratification, but also a goal that's for their future as well. Explaining to them, okay, well, you make $100 per week after tax. We could put $30 per week towards, a Game Boy or a new laptop or, some clothes or some holiday spending money so you can go to the movies. And then you could put some aside for building up an investment portfolio. And you could use that income that it grows over time to reinvest it. And you could maybe one day become a millionaire if you wanted to. Do you want to have a go and see if we could do this together? You've got to hold their hand. And I know for myself when I'm really struggling at work, sometimes I will even say to people that work with me, "Can you please just sit with me and help me stay focused on this?" And they would literally sit with me and go through the steps and check what I was doing. And I'd say, like, "Am I doing this right? It was almost like I needed to be babysit. I know that sounds so silly, but hopefully some people will understand this and can relate to it. But sometimes I think children and teenagers, you just need to sit with them. And it's not to watch over them or to judge them or to, belittle them at all. But sometimes you just need that comfort of someone sitting next to you and going, "It's okay, I'll help you." And I know with my children, quite often I find that they really do calm down if I'm just sitting there with them. And because they then calm down, they're able to focus more. But really look to inspire them. Find someone that they admire and see if you can find a financial story behind that person that they admire. For example, they might like a particular soccer player. They might like an actress. Try and do some digging and find out what that actor or actress or sports star does with their money. That could be something incredibly important that really does trigger a huge, profound sense of responsibility and empowerment for them to start taking money seriously. But start keeping it simple and also allow them to enjoy the comfort that comes from emergency money. So, with Rocco, he doesn't obviously have a part-time job, but he does pocket money and he has chores that he has unpaid chores and paid chores. And I explained to him, you can have some money to spend as you wish, but you can set aside however much you want to put towards your investment portfolio. And then why don't we put a little bit of that's left over towards your savings account, and let's let that build up over time, because we might go on a holiday later on this year, and that means you have some spending money, and you can use that money to your heart's content when we go on holiday. And I keep it as simple as that. And when it comes to charity, that's something we most definitely do. And when we were in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago, and Rocco saw someone begging for money on the side of the street, and we happened to see this person at the same time, but he didn't realize that. And he came running up to me going, "Please, can you give me some money? I really need to. I'll take it out of my own." So, and I was like, "Absolutely. I've already seen him, and I'm going through my wallet right now," and just gave him a whole pile of money. So I think it's really important to keep that conversation of charity obviously included in the mix, but you've really got to use your gut and ask them, how are you finding this conversation? Does this excite you? And go with it and let that conversation really flow. And when it comes to answering that question around school life, so I think I mentioned I struggled at school, but I would really take a step back with the pressure. I feel like kids these days just put so much pressure and stress on themselves. If they don't get into the course that they wanted to, they can reapply later on in the year. They can apply to a different university, a different TAFE. They can find a different pathway in. Where there is a will, there is a way. Continuously providing that unconditional love, I think, is far more important. And just really try and, whatever you're doing, try to just break it down into small bite-sized steps. Throwing a project or an assignment or an exam at a child can really be terrifying, particularly if you have trouble focusing. So talk about doing 20 minutes, or an hour of power in the lead up and preparation to that exam or that assignment, and say to them, "Look, I'll help you along the way. I'll proofread it. I'll go with you to the library. Let's sit down together and do some research together. Let's do a structure." And doing a structure together is something also really important, because you're giving them a framework for them to go away and have a go at it themselves. All right, so hopefully I've sufficiently answered that. The next question is how do I pay my bills and complete my tax on time and manage my paperwork and avoid having multiple superannuation accounts? So there's a lot of questions obviously rolled into this. So as I mentioned, I pay my bills when they come in the mail, when they land in my inbox. I pay them straight away, because for me, seeing things pile up around me makes me lose my focus and become overwhelmed and filled with anxiety. So out of sight, out of mind. The bill comes in, even though it's not due, I don't care that it's not due. I pay it straight away. And I've mentioned this in plenty of other episodes and on my YouTube account and in my books, is I actually pay 1 month in advance. So my water bill, for example, is $330 per quarter. I don't pay that bill quarterly. I actually pay it the moment I get paid in the monthly installment. So I prepay $110 per month the moment I get paid. So technically when that bill comes from Sydney Water, there's actually nothing owing on it. But I keep that routine in there, that habit system, that ritual. I don't think about it, I just do it. So for me, that's one less thing floating around in my brain, one less thing that could just be the straw that breaks the camel's back inside my head. The other thing with tax, I try and get my tax done as soon as the financial year is over. I know if I don't do it, it will not get done and I'll be in trouble. And the more I leave it, the bigger the anxiety. It's going to compound. So what I try and do is maintain some consistency throughout the year. And I use technology to help stay organized. So I use the MYOB Capture app to capture my receipts. I also try and get all my reports lined up as I come up towards the end of the financial year. And what I do, I actually have an accountant who does my taxes for me, because I have quite a complicated tax situation, but I send it over to them at the moment I have enough, not necessarily all, but enough information to get them started. And they can then come back to me and let me know what's missing. But I try and spread the workload throughout the year so that I stay on top of it, because I know I won't do it. And there are obviously huge responsibilities that come by doing your tax and paperwork. Superannuation is the same thing. I have to have simplicity in my life. I have to have simplicity in my financial well-being. I have one superannuation account, and the superannuation account that I have is excellent. I absolutely love it. Unfortunately, it is apparently now closed to new members, which is really frustrating, and it's probably because it was so good. So I will never roll that out unless it's something that is 10 times better, and I haven't found anything that is as good as. So that's where it will stay. So if I ever need someone to pay superannuation, it's that one account. And it's that for my financial goals, I can build it upon what I know is within my superannuation. I know exactly how much money I have in super. I know where it's invested because I have to check one central destination. So much easier. The next question was about the diagnosis process and can I see it in my kids? Now, in the first episode, I talk about my diagnosis process, which took over 4 years to actually finally get the confidence and the brain power to actually turn up to a psychiatrist's office. And the moment I started the process, I could instantly feel the relief. And I wish I had done this a long time ago. But to answer your question about my kids, this is really interesting because ADHD is quite often genetic. And it's interesting. I was diagnosed a year ago, and about 2 months ago, Rocco said to me, "Do you have ADHD?" And I was surprised because I didn't even think he knew what it was. And I said, "Yes, I do." And we've been listening to some podcasts together, and he sort of said, "Look, I think I might have it too because I'm really struggling to focus and I get distracted." So it's something that I will keep my eye out on, and if he continues to sort of mention this problem, I'll obviously start talking to his teachers, and if I need to, I will take him to see a doctor. But there's a lot of studies behind ADHD and medication in children, and that some children with a neuroplasticity can actually rewire their brains with early intervention through medication. Now, I'm not for or against, and I know that I would definitely try a lot of mindfulness exercises before I go down that path with Rocco. Apple, my middle child, is in a different league. Does she have ADHD? Well, I am not in a position to diagnose anyone. Does my gut tell me she does? Yes. She is my wild child. Now, if anyone knows Tom or has met Tom, Tom is wild. Tom is loose. Tom is the life of the party. Tom is the loudest person you will ever meet. He has no filter, but he's also exceptionally bright and really witty. He can turn any situation. He's the best icebreaker. Like, he's hilarious. And when people who are our friends say to us, and Tom loves to tell everyone about my ADHD diagnosis because this has been such a journey for him himself. People look at us and go, "Hang on, Canada doesn't have ADHD, you do." And it's because Tom is so loud and so wild and he's nuts. And people always say to me, they say, like, "Hannah, how do you cope with Tom?" And they say to me, "Oh, we love Tom, but we also love handing Tom back to you." And it's a very funny dynamic because people think I'm the calm one, but the thing is, my calmness, I look calm, but sometimes I'm just a mess inside. I spoke about my spaghetti noodle brain. And Tom may have ADHD, I don't know, but whatever Tom has taught himself, probably through his parents, the most fantastic parents I've ever met, but I think he's been taught either subconsciously or he's taught himself or his parents have just instilled some really great methods, but he is able to focus. He is wild and energetic and gets distracted, but he can sit there and he can focus for hours and hours on end. He almost gets into the hyper-focused to the point where as a child he'd sit there and play the piano for 5 hours non-stop. And I watch what he does in his job, and he's incredibly bright and very knowledgeable, self-taught in a lot of areas of his life. But I think Apple has got Tom's wild, naughty, mischievous personality, but then she's got my probably crazy neurotic brain. And I notice with her, she is hypersensitive like me to sounds. If it gets too noisy in the house, I can see her freaking out and she puts her hands over her ears and I can see her panicking. I also sometimes find her hiding, and if I ask her what she's doing, she'll say, "I just need some peace and quiet. Like I just need to get away." And it's the noise. So she's 4 and I will see how she goes. I've got my eye on her, and I also see she struggles a lot with emotions. So that is something that I have been speaking to other professionals about and something I will work on. But it is important that people remember it quite often is genetic. And I just wish I had been diagnosed correctly as a child, because I think it's important to get on this quickly. I think it's more responsible to just try to bury your head in the sand, or think it's just it's just something that's normal. You need to listen to your gut, and you need to watch them to see, okay, they're struggling, we need to get some help. The next question is how do I make savings fun with ADHD? Easy. A goal, a reward, and lots of little goals along the way. So say you want to save up for a holiday. Okay, that's a great goal, but it's a goal that excites me. So set a goal that triggers something within you, not a society goal, not a sheep herd mentality goal, something that really excites you, gets you passionate, and then work backwards from that. Go, okay, that means I need to save up $1,000 before the end of this month. And that means that I need to open up this account, like break it down into mini goals and mini tasks. But if you don't set the right goal in the first place, it definitely is going to be hard. So invest time exploring the goal and exploring the why behind the goal. What does that holiday represent? Well, it represents fun. It represents family connection. It represents adventure. It represents learning about a different country and the culture behind it. It represents excitement, and it gives us, even if you should start to light up talking about this goal, and have a separate dedicated savings account that is nicknamed, so that you know exactly where to put that money. It's away from temptation, and you know the purpose of that savings account. And check it daily before you go to bed each night. If you have ADHD and with money problems, and no one, I think, has money problems. Like, everyone has money problems, but just I don't think ADHD makes people particularly bad with money. But look at that savings account every night before you go to bed, so you can drift off to sleep dreaming of that goal and getting excited about that goal. You've got to continuously feed your brain with what you are doing and why, and get excited. Next question is, how are people who struggle to save and give money away? Well, then again, we have two different questions within this. Struggling to save, again, is just a matter of having a goal and understanding your why, and creating mini goals and mini tasks that will help you achieve that. And looking at it every day, looking at your account every day, maybe even looking at your budget, and then brainstorming creative ways to help make that goal happen, or those savings building up. Giving away money is slightly different. It's more of a block, and that can come from a space of scarcity. But what I have found personally from someone who gives money to charity, I don't have a problem with it. And if you didn't know, all the money that comes from the $1,000 project, I take the equivalent of that, which is technically reinvested, and I give it to World Vision's the 1,000 Girl Project, which is helping support young girls around the world, giving them education and accommodation and clothing and food and all the important things to help break the poverty cycle. So when it comes to giving money away, look at the beauty of it, and look at how it makes you feel giving money away unconditionally, with no expectations, and the fact that you are helping make that one person or that community's or that organization's life that little bit easier. And it's not about feeding your ego at all, but it's about just allowing yourself to feel good that you're helping, being a part with many other people in making a difference. And I really believe in the flow of money, that the more you've obviously got to give away responsibly, and you've got to have money in the first place to give it, but you've also got to have boundaries where you give it away after you've obviously cared for yourself, and not indulgently, but so that you can safely afford to give away. And the reason why I say this is so that you can continue to give it away in the future in a sustainable way. That is why the $1,000 project, I give it away in a sustainable way. I don't give like large ad hoc lumps of cash. What I have set up is I pay the equivalent of the income, that is the dividend income from the $1,000 project share portfolio, to World Vision. I'm not giving away all my savings. I'm not selling down all my shares. What I have created is a sustainable income or donation source for World Vision. So boundaries, but also the joy of giving unconditionally and with no expectations. And I expect zero gratitude back. All I care about is helping make a difference. And also how lucky I am to have had the opportunities and the fact that I was where I was born, the fact that I have a passport, the fact that I have access to education and clean running water and fresh fruit and vegetables. Like it just helps by putting things into perspective. Giving money away to people in need is easy. And as I said, with no expectations back. The next question I had is how to overcome procrastinations with implementing money habits. I get onto it quickly because I know I'm going to procrastinate is the answer. So the moment I have to do it, if I don't do it right then and there in the spot, I'm in trouble. So if someone says, okay, we're going to have to do this and that, it needs to be done immediately or as soon as they can do it or help me do it. The longer you delay, the stress and the pressure and the blocks and the brain freeze that happens compounds and it just won't get done. So that saying strike while the iron is hot is the only way I can get things done. The next question that I got is, how do I create money habits? Now, the money habits is, I've explained in my budget and cash flow program, which anyone can jump in and do for themselves. But it's like cleaning my teeth. I don't think about it. I just simply do it. And the money habits, especially with your budget and cash flow, is extremely helpful because you are constantly reminded as to what you can do and what is something that needs to be delayed a bit or you have to save up for, or there's an element of delayed gratification that you feel comfortable understanding your boundaries. The next question is, how do I stay motivated and get work done? Okay, this is a hard one to unpack, but I'm someone who's very easily motivated and I'm someone who's very easily inspired, which then means I become very easily motivated to the point where it sometimes gets me in trouble because I get overly inspired and overly motivated and I want to do everything in the moment right then and there, which can be a bit of a mess because you don't know where to start and you start all the things at the same time and then nothing gets done. So I really look at I really regularly stay in touch with things that motivate me and inspire me. So I'll listen to a podcast or I'll watch a YouTube video or I'll read a couple of pages of a book. I fill myself up with, things that written by people or produced by people that have achieve things in their lives that I would love to achieve for themselves, people that I really admire. I don't ever read novels or fiction. It's just, for me, it's not right for my brain. I am a self-help book junkie. I love reading anything around manifestation. I love reading anything about motivation, the psychology of money, anything by Tony Robbins, it's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So that's what helps me stay motivated. So I really hone in on what drives me and try and, build upon that. And then I set those goals and I set those mini tasks around those goals. And those goals are, short-term goals and long-term goals, and they're all in positive alignment to each other. And I talk about them with people. I share them with the right people. And I look at them every day. I read my goals every single day and, I check my accounts and I check, my portfolio, my passive income whenever I can. And ideally, particularly our family budgets, look at my goals again before I go to bed at night so that I can subconsciously dream about them. And maybe, who knows, I might come up with an even better idea when I wake up in the morning. The next question I got is, how do I know what to outsource? This is a great question. I'm so glad this person answered this. And that is, the moment I just can't do it, I put my hand up. And I've learnt the quicker I put my hand up, the better. A classic example was getting our kids' passports organised. It was the worst case of ADHD I've ever had. And I fell into a burst into tears continuously, like uncontrollable, wild emotions, and I had to get Tom to help me. And even when Tom had helped me and actually did all the paperwork and literally said, here you go, this is what you just need to do here, 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 I still got everything wrong. I sat in the Australian passport office in tears, and they were like, I had to explain to them why I got it so wrong. And it was so embarrassing. I was like, and I ended up just saying, look, after confessing, I'm like, I've got 3 kids. I work for myself. I'm so tired. I'm so deprived. And then I just poured my heart out to this good woman. And I said, no, I'm like, and I've got ADHD. I really struggle with this stuff and I don't understand how I managed to get it so wrong. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she helped me and she sat there and explained and, reassured me and said, look, this does happen sometimes, don't worry. And somehow miraculously a miracle happened. I got the passports eventually organised, but every single section I had done wrong. So the moment you collapse or it's too hard, put your hand up as quickly as possible when it feels wrong. And I don't do my own taxes. I know I can do my own taxes, but it is, number one, it's not an efficient use of my time. I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So I would happily pay for a professional to do it that might miss a deduction that I wasn't aware of, or a loophole, or as an illegal loophole, of course. Know your skill set, and I'm quite happy to stay in my lane. And I respect paying my accountant to do my taxes and to get it done correctly, and to know that if I ever get audited, which anyone could be audited at any time, there's nothing there that I've accidentally done that I shouldn't have done. It's pretty boring, and again, it's about one less thing to worry about in an overly stimulated brain. The next one is, do you agree that ADHD and mindless shopping go hand in hand? And how do I curb it? No, I don't believe ADHD and mindless shopping goes hand in hand. I think all sorts of different factors and situations and triggers come into shopping mindlessly. You've just got to be aware of it, whether you have ADHD or not, and seek professional help if it's an addiction or you think it could become addiction. But as I've explained in I think it's the second episode, how I manage my cash flow, I have money for me, money to keep my sanity. I have a monthly massage in there, because that's what I value. And I have a small amount to allow myself to shop for myself. If you tell me I can't have something, I will become a wild child and a rebellious wild child. And I will do the complete opposite of what that person has done to try and tell me I can't have something or control me. It completely backfires. So allow within your budget, a safe amount of money that allows you to spend on something that you value, whether it be a pair of shoes, whether it be, something that you like gadgets and gizmos, whether it be, going out. But allow yourself to have those things. But obviously make sure it's within the safe boundaries of your budget so that you're not spending that on a credit card with, compounding credit card debt spiraling out of control. And I will say that one of the things before I was probably diagnosed is my sugar addiction was out of control. I was almost self-medicating with sugar subconsciously. So again, it's that awareness. And what I now do as part of my new ritual is I try and avoid chocolate for as long as possible throughout the day, because the earlier I start eating chocolate, I then just means they'll eat chocolate for the rest of the day. So what I've done is created a beautiful new routine for myself where I have a peppermint tea in bed with a bit of chocolate, which I break up into little pieces, put in a nice little teeny tiny plate, and I have that in bed with silence around me and ideally my kids now fast asleep, and eat that, drink my tea, and that's enough. And because I'm going to sleep, I'm not going to eat any more chocolate for the rest of the day. So get creative in coming up with your own strategies and solutions, and just that awareness is the key, and being proactive about it. Next question is, and we are getting towards the end of this, is how to avoid feeling overwhelmed in managing budgets and over-analysis going down a rabbit hole. Okay, this is where I come back to the idea of ETFs and listed investment companies. I do not have the brain power. I do not have the focus. I don't even really have the motivation to sit there and try and pick the individual stocks anymore of my share portfolio. I'm also very aware of my skill set, even though I'm a financial planner with over 2 decades of under my belt. And there's 2 decades of me being a financial planner, but there's actually, probably 25 years worth of personal experience in investing under my belt. For me, I am aware of the value of my time and the risks involved. And for me, a no-brainer is a listed investment company and a ETF, because it's all done for me. I don't have to do the analysis. And you can just Google listed investment companies and a whole range of them will come up with. And if you look at my Instagram account, I've shared the key things to look for, listed investment companies with consistent returns that have been around for a long time. I personally like listed investment companies that are 100% fully franked and focus purely on industrial shares. So that's how I do it. I keep it simple. I don't try and overcomplicate things. And of course, you need to obviously invest according to your risk profile. The next thing is, how do I stick to a plan without changes? Okay, I don't. Life changes. I change, you change, things happen out of the blue. We need to make changes. But the changes need to work with us and for us. And if they happen, those changes, that's a good thing. I don't set a financial plan for myself and go, that's it, following that for the rest of my life, for the next 30, 40 years and stick to it. Hell no, that's silly. That's very narrow-minded. What if something better comes along? Or what if my situation changes and that strategy is no longer the right thing for me? Of course, I try and stick to it if it makes sense, but I'm never afraid of adjusting my financial strategy and my game plan, because that is the smart, intelligent thing to do. The laws may change, the taxes may change, there may be a special concession for me to make the most of, and I need to change my strategy. So it's about being intelligent, and it's about knowing what is best for me. And I know that what changes I make are for my long-term financial well-being and my family's long-term financial well-being. So don't ever think you can't make changes and you're ruining your plans. No. And of course, allow that balance. There are times where I've had to, make some changes in my game plan to allow more money for childcare, or to allow more money to pay for something for the house that we desperately needed. Or, I've had to slightly cut down my regular investment plan or savings plan or debt reduction plan for our mortgage to allow extra money to be able to have a family holiday, because that's what's more important. So don't think everything is set in stone. Please don't, because life is always moving. Nothing is ever stagnant and nothing is forever. Your strategy should change with you. And that's why a financial planner can really help. The next question is how did I know that I had ADHD? And that was, I think I shared this with you in my story, but there were so many red flags. I would burn dinner all the time. I would go to the supermarket sometimes 3 times a day, even though I was walking with a list, but I was just too overwhelmed with the people, the colours, the sounds, the movements. It's like embarrassing. I'd also go into hyperfocus with ADHD, which a lot of people think you can't concentrate with ADHD. You can actually. You get into a hyperfocus, and there'd be times where I couldn't, I'd be gardening and I'd be fixated on gardening and weeding, that I couldn't physically stop, even though I had to leave the house to pick Rocco up because it was school time. And I actually should have been doing work before that. I don't know why it wasn't, but I just got into these hyper focuses where I was like, you got to stop, you've got to go to pick Rocco up, you're going to be late. But I physically couldn't stop. And I remember when I was in my 20s and I lived by myself, there were days where I would work from home and I wouldn't even realize, but I'd get up at the to end the day, and I would realize I'd go to lock the door to go to bed, and I'd realize the door was still locked because I hadn't actually left the house. And it wasn't because of sort of being a homebody or OCD. It was because I had gotten into a hyper focus, and there were so many things, and the OCD was getting out of hand with the figure 10, and it is. I've got, even now, my brain's firing with the way of thinking, and people around me. As I said, one of my staff members was like, "We need to keep this conversation going." The other thing is how to set boundaries. Okay, so this is actually something I will thank the medication. I'm someone who really struggled with boundaries from a personal point of view. Since having medication, and the medication I take is dexamphetamine, I now have boundaries. And if I catch myself in a situation where I want to do everything and achieve everything with the over-motivation and over-inspiration, there's a part of my brain with this medication that goes, hang on, back it up. I know you want to do this and you want to do that and that and that and that, but let's put a process in place. Let's break it down. Let's put a list of priorities. And you may have actually overloaded yourself with too many things right now. Let's just pick a few and work on those now, and then we can come back to those other ones next week or next month or further into the year. So that I really have to thank the medication that's taught me boundaries. But when it comes to boundaries with money, for me, it's about safety, because my budget keeps me safe. My goals are also a boundary, because it keeps me focused and motivated, and it makes me accountable, and it gives me that mindfulness to pause before I spend money and go, hang on, do I really want that $200 dress, or would I prefer $200 in my investment portfolio that will take me one step closer to being able to buy my next parcel of $1,000 worth of shares? So it is the boundaries of, I really respect not worrying about money, and that doesn't mean I don't worry about money at all, but I respect that I worry a lot less than the average person about money. I don't worry about drowning in credit card debt. I don't worry about not having enough money for retirement. I don't worry about not being able to afford to retire. I don't worry about not being able to meet my mortgage repayments because I have the boundaries keep me safe, so I respect those boundaries. So yeah, really playing on that element of safety. And I know for people who don't have ADHD that I've coached to get out of debt, their budget is their non-negotiable. Once I've shown them the budgeting and cash flow technique that I personally use, that you can do the Sugar Mama Academy and do this for yourself, but they are hyper protective of their budget and cash flow system because it's helped them get back on their feet again, and they never want to risk getting into that bad space ever again. The next question is struggling to invest, that responsibility and that focus. Again, it comes back to goals and breaking down those goals into mini goals and then mini tasks. So it's great to have a goal to start investing, but let's explore that more and trigger things that ignite that motivation and focus and concentration and desire within you so that it can naturally play out in your actions. It's the thoughts, feeling, actions connection when they're in positive alignment. So if your goal is to invest, awesome. What would you like to invest in? Or actually, let's go back one step further. How much passive income would you like to earn? Okay, $5,000 a year. All right. Okay, let's look at different investment options. Let's do a risk profile because that will then give us a guide as to where we should be starting to do our research. Okay, what investments interest you? We have shares. This is how shares work. You can buy shares with as little as $500 if you like, or I recommend personally $1,000 as a minimum amount. And go, okay, well, whilst we're breaking down, we're going to do maybe the ASX free online share trading classes. We could do one of those a night. And let's open up an online savings account and put some money aside so that while we're learning, we've got some money saving up, and we can, the moment we've done the courses and we understand what we're doing, we can buy something. Again, striking while the iron is hot. The moment you're ready, jump on it. Don't delay, don't procrastinate. And it's almost like being a little bit impulsive, but in a healthy way that's actually almost like a superpower. It's that fine line between impulsive behavior that can be negative or impulsive behavior that just gets stuff done. And I'm definitely someone who is impulsive, most definitely, but I'm impulsive in a positive way because I just do things rather than talk about it. And yes, that does come back to get me into trouble sometimes because, Tom would be like, okay, you went and did that. Did you want to chat about that? And it's not a disrespect thing. It's a just get it done. And don't waste time. And I guess, that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person because they'll get it done. So strike while the iron's hot, lots of mini goals that lead back from that big goal, and lots of tasks, mini tasks that are not overwhelming, that can be done within a 5-minute block or a 15-minute block or whatever the boundaries are of your focus, and build up from that and keep a ritual going so that you're consistently doing it over and over again, day after day, and that will, build up over time. 365 little habits each day is incredibly powerful. And then the next final question is how to prepare kids with ADHD and money. As I said, I teach my kids equally in the way of money. And obviously you have to lean into their interests and what ignites something within them and triggers them and read their boundaries. But we've got to be talking to our kids about money, not to drown them in our financial worries and woes and stresses, but to empower them and to educate them. And even if you're bad with budgeting, sit down and say to your children, I've never been great at budgeting because no one's taught me. So at the moment, I'm really learning how to do a budget. Would you like to sit with me and see what we're doing and help me? Maybe can you highlight these numbers for me? And here's a highlighter and here's my pen. Every time you see the word Woolworths, can you circle that for me? Take it, give them little chores to do within it, and show them what you're trying to do, and show them why you're trying to do that. Well, if we can stick to our budget, it may mean that we can have a little bit of money for the extra on the weekend, and we could go to the local park, or we could go to have a weekend away, or we could afford to go to the movies. Include them. You The fact that you are having a go and actually taking your financial well-being seriously is so powerful. You do not need to be a Warren Buffett to make your children mini Warren Buffetts or big Warren Buffetts. Just by leading by example, by having a go is so important. And, there's a whole chapter dedicated in Mindful Money where I talk about what I'm doing with my kids, and they each have their own individual share portfolios. And when I can afford to, I add little bits of money here and there that build up over time. And, I don't try and conquer it all. I definitely don't jam it down, and I let them take the lead. And this has got nothing to do with ADHD. And I read the signs for when it's too much. We've gone too deep. We need to take a step back, and the conversation, the lesson stops there. But we can pick it up again from there next week, next month, or whenever they come back to me and want to do it. But even at the supermarket, I talk to my kids, or we go to Kmart before they, if they're buying a toy for a birthday or something like that, I make them look at everything before they buy. I explain to them quality. Okay, you want to buy that toy? That toy looks like it would fall apart very quickly. Let's see what other toys look like they might be better made, because you know how disappointed it is when a toy falls apart, and maybe that toy could be better because you can do these 5 things with it. So it's not just about saving accounts and investing. It's actually about teaching children how to shop mindfully, be intelligent with the way that they spend money, but also to spend money in ways that gives them joy. And I've had to, at times this is frustrating for me because at the moment Rocco is going through a Pokemon card phase, but he loves them. And I look at them and go, what a waste of money. But guess what? He's been showing me his Pokemon card collection. And this is something that really it inspires him and motivates him. And his Pokemon card collection's actually worth a lot of money. He's actually discovered some really rare ones, which one of them was worth over $1,000. We couldn't believe it. And so then again, it's about teaching him, okay, well, you've got to take care of these cards. Let's get a special book for these. Let's keep them in great condition. Let's keep them somewhere safe. Again, that's also an important financial lesson within the story of money. It's not just budgets and saving accounts and investing. It's learning how to enjoy your money today, but shop intelligently, wisely, in a sustainable manner. Showing my kids about when they outgrow their toys, we put them on Gumtree and we save that money up to then replace those toys and ideally buy pre-loved again. So there's and again, the charity, there's so many conversations around children and money. You don't just hone in on one or two, because there's so much more to go into this. All right, that wraps up today's episode. I know it's been a long one, but a massive thank you to everyone who has listened to this series and been a part of it, and also helped hold the space with me for me to share my vulnerabilities and to share my moments of, where I've been very fragile and insecure and nervous. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. And please know, this conversation doesn't necessarily need to end at all. It is an open space, a safe space, and I'm a space filled with strategies and solutions for everyone. Whether you have ADHD or not, it doesn't matter, because I think so many of us at times really do struggle, feel overwhelmed, anxious, and just confused. So this is the place where hopefully we stop that from happening and we start seeing progress, happiness, lightness, and obviously inspiration and motivation back in our lives again, so we can live our best lives. Thank you everyone for listening. I will see you next Monday, where we'll be back to our normal episodes. Have a brilliant week, and if you can leave me a rating and review, I would greatly appreciate it. Ciao for now.